Well, a lot of people on the left are waking up these days. Question is, how long is it going to last? And is this really a waking up or is this just a temporary shock? I'll talk about that in detail coming up on In Focus. Just today, I've been rushing around doing all kinds of things today, but I did have a little bit of time to look at the news. And other than the updates on the war, which I'll just say briefly, it, Israel seems to be. We first of all, we're doing well. We lost a lot of soldiers this week. We lost 15, mainly from Givati, but Hamas is losing 10 or 20 for everyone that falls on us. And Golani Brigade had an amazing heroic battle last night between, I think, midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning. A team was ambushed by about 30 Hamas terrorists who came out of a tunnel, and they were going to try to get the Golani soldiers a armored personnel carrier. And instead, with close air support, the soldiers were able to kill, I think, 20 of the terrorists, and the others ran away. And our soldiers all came away doing well. But obviously, war is hard, and it's important for the ratio to be 10, 20, 50 to 1. Hamas dead and to ours, but and everyone who passes, everyone who dies is an extraordinary tragedy. But it looks like we're moving forward methodically, carefully, and successfully, and very professionally. So that's a good thing. And the most important thing is just not to stop. The tempo has to keep going, up, 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 up until we crush them, which of course is why the Biden administration wants a ceasefire, and they're now making an all-out effort to force Israel to a ceasefire, which they're now using the new euphemism of humanitarian pause, I think, which is just ceasefire so that Hamas can regroup, catch its breath, reorganize, and continue the fight. So the Biden administration is openly operating in order to enable Hamas to survive, which is just shocking, which means that Israel really just has to stop listening to the Biden. But I want to talk about something else. So that's just my assessment of how the war is going. I'm guardedly optimistic so long as we stop letting Biden run roughshod over us. We just have to stop. We have to say no. We have to get him used to us saying no. So now I want to talk about just two seemingly small things that crossed over my desk. So I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2012, there was this blonde, curly-haired Palestinian teenager who came out, and she was cursing at our soldiers who were operating in and around her village in Samaria called Nevi Salah, which is a hotbed of international anarchists and Fatah terrorists and PFLP terrorists who all operate together with the radical left in Israel, European governments, and it's all kind of one big thing that tries to demonize and demonize our soldiers and undermine IDF military operations. So this woman, this young girl with blonde hair, was a member of a clan of terrorists called Tamimi. That's the Tamimi clan in Samaria. And that clan has produced many, many, many murderers, mass murderers, the most famous of whom is Ahed Tamimi, or Alam Tamimi, he's a woman who was the mastermind of the 2001 Sparrow pizzeria bombing in Jerusalem that murdered 15 Israelis. 8 of them were children, many of them American citizens. In the last week of summer vacation, there were a lot of families there with their children having lunch, and she knew exactly when to direct the suicide bomber to come. She was let out in the Gilad Shalit prisoner swap, which we'll talk about in a second, the second thing. So anyway, Ahed Tamimi was this young teenager, and she was covering for advancing the causes of Palestinian terrorism, demonizing our soldiers. And she actually smacked one of our soldiers. She was arrested for assault. And it caused this big uproar on the international left, who portrayed her as Joan of Arc. She was profiled in Vogue, by CNN, Al Jazeera, of course, and and BBC, Glamour. She was the poster child of Palestinian terrorism with her long, flowing blonde locks. And, I remember writing about her and writing about her clan and writing about their ties to terrorism and how absurd this was. But the Israeli left loved her too. There's this Israeli multimillionaire. He owns a bunch of laser hair removal clinics in Israel that was paying her legal bills. Her defense attorney was human rights lawyers, that's rights for terrorist lawyers, named Gabi Lasky, who was a member of Knesset in the last Knesset for Meretz, very far to the left, and everybody was so proud to be associated with the Joan of Arc of Palestinian terrorism. So anyway, she got out of prison and became even more of a terrorist. So this week she posted on her Instagram account, which has since been deleted, but she had 100,000 followers, and I'm sure she'll get them back as soon as she opens it up again. So she writes here on her Instagram account, "Our message to the flocks of settlers: we are waiting for you in all the cities of the West Bank, from Hebron to Jenin. We will slaughter you, and you will say that what Hitler did to you is a joke," said Tamimi. "We will drink your blood and eat your skull. Come on, we're waiting for you." This is what the poster child of Palestinian terrorism, who was profiled by Glamour, by Vogue, by CNN, by BBC. Everybody loved her. She was everybody's friends. Israeli leftists were crawling all over her, and everybody wanted to be associated with the poster girl of Palestinian nationalism, even though she was a terrorist from a terrorist clan who had produced only murderers of Jews, right? Everybody loved her. She had blonde hair. So now she comes out of the closet as a Nazi. Has Gabi Lasky said anything about it? Has she walked away from her previous support for this little monster? No, of course not. Nobody has. But I think, it's important to note that Ahed Tamimi, her cousin, who's now yucking it up, has been since 2006 in Jordan, where she's lavished with love by this supposedly moderate King Abdullah of Jordan, and gives interviews all the time to inspire other Arabs to become terrorists, murderers like she was. So she was freed in the Gilad Shalit prisoner swap. And this brings me to the second story. So the Gilad Shalit prisoner swap is a 2011 agreement that, if you remember, in 2005, an Israeli IDF corporal named Gilad Shalit was taken hostage by Hamas when, through a cross-border tunnel, they came into Kerem Shalom, which is a base that was overrun on October 7th. A lot of people slaughtered. Kerem Shalom kibbutz also, a lot of death. So the first tunnel that we saw operational use of was in 2005, where the terrorists who came into Israel and they attacked Gilad Shalit's tank. They killed his colleagues in the tank, his comrades, in 3, and they took him prisoner. And he was held in Gaza from, I think, June or July of 2006. Sorry, this is right before the beginning of the Second Lebanon War. And then he was released by Hamas in 2011 in a hostage for terrorist swap that saw 1,027 terrorists jailed in Israeli prisons, including 280 who were serving life sentences for involvement in lethal terrorist attacks against Israelis that led to the death of Israelis. They were all released. So Ahed Tamimi, the mastermind of the Sparrow bombing, she was released, and Yahya Sinwar, the current commander of Hamas forces in Gaza, who oversaw and planned the entire slaughter of October 7th, he was released in that swap as well. And who was the person who negotiated that swap? Well, is a radical leftist Jerusalem Post columnist named Gershon Baskin. Gershon Baskin really never found a Palestinian that he thought was a terrorist, and he never found a right-wing Israeli that he thought wasn't an extremist, and he negotiated the swap deal with Hamas's international spokesman, a man named Razi Hamed. Now, what would you expect the specialty of a terrorist organization's international spokesman to be? Well, that would be psychological warfare, right? Because his whole purpose in life is to speak to gullible leftists in Israel and in the international arena and convince them to give things to Hamas, give them terrorists, give them money, give them concrete, give them international legitimacy, whatever. That's the job of an international spokesperson for a terrorist organization, and that's exactly who Razi Hamed was. So October 7th, Razi Hamed's compatriots in this genocidal terrorist organization that he's always been an open member of, that he has represented for decades as their international spokesman, they invade Israel and they slaughter 1,400 Israelis with unspeakable sadism. They take 240 Israelis, including 33 children, now we know, to Gaza as hostages. And then I think today or yesterday, Razi Hamed gives this interview where he said that he's praying he wants to see another million October 7th. He wants Hamas's charter. He wants genocide of Jewry. That's what he wants. 1 million October 7th is 1 million that means that you want all the Jews dead in the entire world. And so this got Gershon Baskin mad. And he wrote a letter to his buddy, Razi Hamed, who he negotiated the 1,027 terrorists for one hostage deal in 2011. He writes him this, and I think it's important to quote a bit of it. He says, "I believe this will be the last time I ever communicate with you. I don't think that you have the courage to answer me, and I do not expect an answer. But these are my words to you, and I hope they sink in deep into your mind. I think you have lost your mind and that you have lost your moral code. You have crossed the line between humanity and inhumanity." And then he says, of Hamas terrorist organization's international spokesman, continues on, talks about the massacre, how terrible it was. My God, babies, whole families burned alive, old people, children killed in front of the parents. These are not the actions of human beings. Then he says to him, "I always thought that you were a man of principle, with principle of humanity. How can you justify the things that your people did? How can you call for 1 million October 7th? Then he goes on. Now, he always said that Israel was guilty of war crimes for bombing Gaza. Gershon Baskin, I care more about your people than you ever cared for them. Every time someone in Gaza would come to me and ask for help, I would tell them to talk to you. You know what they said? They only care about their own people. That's what so many people in Gaza said to me about you and your people." And he says, "Honestly, Razi, you surprised me and disappointed me. We have known each other. I have known this Hamas terrorist. We have known each other for 18 years. We have spoken more than 1,000 times. We have met face to face, I think 4 times. You earned my respect when you showed that you actually cared for Gilad Shalit and wanted him to be returned to his family, not just get prisoners released. There was some humanity in you, and on the day of his release, you even said, quote, 'Next time we will negotiate peace.' That is what you said, but you have changed and you are evil. So here's the thing. No, he never changed. He just decided not to have to lie anymore. It's all out on the table now. They murdered 1,400 people. They slaughtered them. They slaughtered them in the most sadistic, with unimaginable sadism. And yet it's this statement by this guy that he wants 1 million of them. That's what made you wake up. And really? This was enabled by the Gilad Shalit deal that you negotiated on your own, and then forced it down the throat because you presented the government with a fait accompli. Look, we have this deal. How can you not take it? We'll get Gilad Shalit back in exchange for just 280 terrorist murders and all told 1,027 terrorists from our prison. We just let them out and everything will be fine. Because look, Razi Hamed told me that we will negotiate peace. And you believed him. And you believed him. And the left believes these people. They keep believing these people. Why do they believe these people? Because they think that the problem is with our people. Because the left has spent the last 50 years claiming that the reason there's no peace is because of the Israeli right, because of the so-called settlers, right? Because of the extremist settlers. And they latch on to this idea that there are good Jews, that's them, and there are the bad Jews, that's me, right? That's all of us. And if they can just keep the damn right-wing Jews down, then they'll be able to make peace with people like Razi Chabad, who then come out of the closet when it's time, say, I was lying to you the whole time, you dum-dum. What were you thinking? You were negotiating with Hamas. Did you ever read our charter? We call for the annihilation of the Jewish people, and we say that it's a religious duty of every Muslim to murder Jews the minute that they can. And you gave him the deal that enabled October 7th. Yahya Sinwar would still be rotting in prison without the Gilad Shalit prisoner swap. All of these people who were given just this tailwind to go forward, that were the whole transformation of Gaza into Afghanistan, it was enabled by the Shalit deal. It was a disaster of epic proportions. But you believed him. The left believes these liars, these psychological warfare experts, Mahmoud Abbas, the PA chairman being another one, Marwan Barghouti, the Fatah leader, who everybody loved because he had pidgin English, is another one. Muhammad Dakhlan, the head of the I don't know what you would call it, the KGB of the PA in Gaza, called the Preventive Security Force. They all lied. They had this pidgin Hebrew that everybody loved, and everybody was romanced by it because, look, that means that they're just like us because they speak to us in Hebrew or whatever, or they spoke to you in English, and you just felt like you were on the edge. You were the one. You were the trailblazers. You guys were all making peace. Gabi Lansky, she was a celebrity lawyer because she was representing Ahed Tamimi, and who's now calling for us for them to eat our heads. Right? We will drink your blood and eat your skull. Yum. Right? This is the one that was profiled in Glamour, okay? In Vogue. And it's, of course, not just the Israeli leftists, right? It's also the American Jewish establishment. I mean, Jonathan Greenblatt has spent, 8 years as the head of the ADL, hiding the rising tide of left-wing anti-Semitism and insisting that the greatest threat to Jews in the United States was coming from the far right. The far right, the radicals, the neo-Nazis, who, were never accepted by the Republican establishment, whereas these Hamas-supporting progressives have seated themselves into the key positions in the Democratic Party and in the Biden administration. Now, I've written about this. Hadi Amar, the special representative to the Palestinians, has a history of support for Hamas. Okay? What's her name? I wrote about her on Kristen Clark, who is the Assistant Attorney General of the United States in charge of civil rights, who's in charge of protecting Jews and enforcing hate laws against anti-Semites. She has a track record of anti-Semitism. And everybody just turned a blind eye to this. To AOC, who is an out-and-out Jew hater, right? I mean, she is supporting Hamas along with Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and everybody wanted to pretend it away or pretend it wasn't a big deal. When AIPAC came out and started trying to primary these people, they got attacked by the Jewish far left. And J Street was supporting all of these people. And now suddenly everybody now, at least people like Jonathan Greenblatt, he gives this interview, I think it was at CNN, and he says that they said, well, in the past you said that right-wing anti-Semitism or far-right anti-Semitism is the most pressing threat, and that left-wing anti-Semitism is more like global warming. And then suddenly he says that no, we're now at the point of a Category 5 hurricane, and it's impossible to say that there's any distinction between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. Well, duh, right? And the thing is that frustrates me is that where's the apology? Where is the acknowledgement that you were wrong on the part of any of these people? And it's not that I'm waiting and I want to say I told you so. It's that you guys were demonizing your brothers and sisters for over a generation and a half. Everybody was pointing at the truth that the Razi Hamids of the world are terrorists and that Ahed Tamimi is not a poster girl for anything except suicide bombings. And it's obscene beyond belief that people are embracing her as some sort of a symbol of I don't know what that you laud. And all because, why? Because you wanted to say that there's a difference between Jews on the left and settler extremist Jews, right? The bad Jews, the Jews who understand that this is our land and that we have a right to it and won't apologize for that and want to live here without apology because we don't owe anybody an apology. And the Jews who said, look, you can't trust these people. There is literally no way to exist here with a terrorist organization running a regime west of the Jordan River. And you dismissed all the arguments and you dismissed everybody who made the arguments as illegitimate, as an extremist. There was no point in time, dangerous people. Acknowledge that you were wrong. Acknowledge that we were right. You know why I feel like you need to acknowledge that we were right? And again, I don't care. I'm fine. It's not about me. It's not a personal thing. I definitely don't need recognition from anybody. That's not the point. The point is that even still today, the left in America, the left here, and of course the Biden administration is still with a maniacal obsessiveness pushing this lie, this total lie that there's a distinction between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. And Hamas, there is no distinction. It's not just that you see crowds of thousands and thousands of people in every major city and village in Judea and Samaria saying, we are Hamas, we want to join the jihad. It's also from the top. Yesterday, Regavim put out this Regavim NGO put out a clip, and unfortunately, it still hasn't come out in English. But I'll tell you what it says. It's an interview with Mohammed Shtaya from 2 days ago, from the 30th of October. He is the prime minister of the Palestinian Authority. He's supposed to be a technocrat. Okay, I know him from the negotiations that I was involved in the 1990s. And he was a technocrat. He was just a professional, right? He spoke English, and I think he lived in Europe, and he was very urbane, and he still is in his mustache. He's on TV, on Palestinian TV, and he is saying openly that they know in the Palestinian Authority that Hamas is a major and legitimate player in Palestinian life, and that as far as they're concerned, after the war is over, they want to form a unity government with Hamas. They're saying we are Hamas. So it's coming from above, it's coming from below. But here you see this parade of people saying, oh, we don't want to take any actions in Judea and Samaria. We don't want to actively protect any of the communities by pushing away, by putting in roadblocks. Today, an Israeli was murdered in Samaria in a roadside shooting, largely because out of concern and for the welfare of the Palestinian Authority, the moderate Palestinian Authority, Israel is not placing roadblocks on the road to check Palestinian vehicles as they approach Israeli towns. There's no bars on the transport, even though the threat of terror is sky high, because we want to keep things calm. We want to keep things calm. Things aren't calm, and these people are not moderates, and they're not your friends, and there are no moderates in Hamas, and there are no moderates in the Palestinian Authority. There just aren't. And this idea that you can acknowledge that you were wrong about one thing, but you won't acknowledge that your entire worldview, that the problem lays with the Jews and not with the people who want to annihilate the Jews, lock, stock, and barrel. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the sex, doesn't matter the political positions, doesn't matter whether they or religious or secular. Nothing matters. They just want us all dead. And you're beginning to understand that, but we'll never get anywhere if you don't understand that one of the reasons that they were able to make it so far, a central reason, is because you preferred to believe them over believing your brothers. You would rather spend time with the Mahmoud Abbases of the world than with anybody on the Israeli right, Benjamin Netanyahu. You would rather sit with Razi Hamad than sit with Daniela Weiss, the settler leader. But she don't want to kill you. She wants you to be happy. And he wants to kill you. And he is killing you. And he is engaged in that. And he works for a terrorist organization that is committed to the annihilation of the Jews. It's time to wake up. We can't continue on with these delusions any longer. There is no possible two-state solution. Either it's us or it's them. I choose us. I've always chosen us. The right has always chosen us, warts and all. Everybody together, we are one people. Nobody on the right has ever denied it. I'll just say one last thing before I end this. My friend Gadi Taub, he was on the show before October 7th. And, I was maybe I was a little bit mean. I was interrogating him, about what he thought when he was on the left, how he could have believed all of this crap, that we leave Gaza, it'll be better. We give these terrorists a state and it'll be better. And he said, the one thing that I can say on my own behalf when he was defending himself, he said he knew, and he wrote a book to this effect about the Jews who live in Judea and Samaria. He said they will never abandon the country. They will never walk away. They will never reject the legitimacy of the state of Israel, no matter what the state of Israel does to them. Expel 10,000 people from their homes in Gaza and northern Samaria, destroy their communities that they built from sand dunes, and hand the whole thing over, lock, stock, and barrel to Palestinian terrorists. They will still send their sons to serve in the most combat, the most high level combat units in the IDF and officer training school. They will still sacrifice everything for this country. And that's not the same on the left, because if you believe that the other side, that the people who are trying to kill us, that are dedicated and committed to the annihilation of the Jews, are more credible than Jews that you disagree with, then you're missing the plot. It's not true. Our survival, whether in the diaspora or in Israel, is contingent on us standing together. Part of us being able to stand together, though, involves you having a cheshbon nefesh, you thinking through what went wrong here. How is it possible that you were taken in by the likes of Ahed Tamimi and Razi Hamad? How could you have thought, even for a second, that these people were legitimate, that they were people that you would want to talk to? That, what did you call him? That there was some humanity in you. Why would you think that? Why did you ever think that? He was a Hamas terrorist. His job was to lie to you. You were his mark. And you would rather be his mark than to be my friend. And that's the problem. That is the problem. And it has to be solved if we're to survive. And, we never, ever hated leftists. We were angry, and we still are, and criticize and fight and argue. But for 10 months, just now, before October 7th, the left was engaged in an all-out war to annihilate the Israeli right politically, to taking the idea down with it. Where is a reckoning? And the American Jews were on their side. Well, maybe we shouldn't meet with Netanyahu when he comes to America. Maybe we shouldn't be with him when we come to Israel. No, it's a problem with the right-wing government. It's an extremist government. What was extreme about it? Absolutely nothing. Nothing was extreme about it. Because they were proud Jews and patriots and want to be strong and don't want to give the store up to people who want to kill our babies and do. There's nothing extreme about that. But we need a reckoning. We need you to accept the legitimacy of your brothers. We need to win, to survive. We need for you not only to recognize that you were lied to by the Palestinians, but that we were saying the truth. Because it just can't work otherwise. It has to work. We'll never give up. But to be safe, you have to give up your hatred of us. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'll talk to you guys next week. Shabbat Shalom.